Hi, this is Becca coming at you from the FCC with another women-centric ZRL Recon. This is week 4, the last week of the series, and it's a points race on double span spin. So you can see the Velo viewer here. This is not including the Recon, so the A's and the B's are going to do this portion of the race 5 times, and the C's and the D's are going to do it 3 times, which I think just means Martin hates the A's and the B's. So a TLDR for this ZRL points race, a little different than my usual recommendations, but definitely get 6 riders if you can. It makes a big difference. Count the jerseys. And if you have any questions on this, honestly, just DM me on Discord because I'm happy to chat about why this is an important one, count jerseys. Also, remember that there are ideal places to use your power-up, but it's not worth losing the group to get that extra advantage of using it in the ideal spot. So if you're going to drop from the group, use that power-up. Don't hang out in the pocket at the back of the group going through banners. So as I've talked about before, there's something called pinch points in ZRL. So you go up over a climb and into a descent, and if you're hanging out in the back of the group, as the front starts to descend, there can gaps can develop, and then you have to chase. And chasing on a downhill when the downhills are immediately followed by segments is not good. You want to be able to rest on the downhill so that you can get your heart rate down and under control for the next segment, because this is segment after segment. So recommendation on bikes. Aero bike with, depends on what your goal is and what your strengths are, whether I would recommend the Princeton Wakes or the disc. So if you have a harder time on the descents, if you're a lightweight rider who's really good at climbing, I would say go with disc, because it'll help you in the descents gather more speed and stay in the groups, and you're really not going to be hindered on these climbs. If you have no issue with descents and you're looking for just a tiny bit more help on the hills and a tiny bit more help in accelerating, then go with the Princeton Wakes. So we're going to go and take a look at the course notes. And here we are. I'm just going to go through one lap, and essentially you're just going to do it over and over. So you should get an aero power up in the pen, and this has actually followed through in each of these races. So you should actually get an aero power up in the pen. And then you're going to start a gentle descent around 1 kilometer. Anytime you are starting a descent, my recommendation of don't hang out in the back of the pocket, it goes. So just make sure you watch the group. The next interest point is when you leave the tunnels at 3.5 kilometers, the escalators are fixed, so don't waste watts here. Watch the group, but don't waste watts. The Manhattan Bridge is going to start at 4.4 kilometers. This is about 0.9 kilometers of a draggy climb, but there's a sprint at the top. So you do the draggy climb, it's mostly under 3% the whole way, and then you start the sprint at 5.3 kilometers. This is a 250 meter sprint at an average of 1.3% grade. That is almost nothing, falls flat. So, but the speeds of the peloton will be lower. So don't rely on having that extra speed as you blast through the start of the banner. You're going to be coming into it at a lower speed. So just watch your positioning, and you'll have fastest through the segment for the top 5 times of the entire race, and everybody gets FAL. So first across the line, every single rider gets it. Make sure that you stay with the group if you can. Through that banner, you're going to pick up a feather power up. The speeds will stay high, and you'll start a descent immediately after at 7.7 kilometers. So you are at not 7.7. You start the climb at 7.7. You start the descent at 5.7. Then you're going to descend for about a kilometer. This is really important that you stay with the group, because if you're chasing downhill and then you start the KOM, you're hosed for the KOM. So you need to get your heart rate down and be ready to start again. The Brooklyn Bridge KOM starts 7.7. This is a weird KOM because the first half is a descent. So it's kind of a slingshot. You don't want to go into it at the front. If you go into it at the front, you're just rollover fodder for everyone else. So you'll see it on this video. I'm going to do a banded lap where I talk through it on the screen. So I'm going to mute my mic, and then you'll see it in a hot lap, just one. So the KOM starts an ascent, and then it's a sharper ascent around 5%. And then it evens out towards the banner. So the banner is fairly flat, and you're going to have a feather power up. So just watch where you drop it. You should pick up an arrow power up when you go through that banner, and the descent of the Brooklyn Bridge is immediately after the banner. So make sure you keep pushing until you're with a group. Then you descend for about 1 kilometer, and then you head right back to the Manhattan Bridge. And you do loops and loops and loops. So it's going to last a long time for the A's and B's. Slightly less for the C's and D's at 3 laps, but it's still going to feel like a lot of segments. So good luck, everyone. Have fun. Enjoy your teams. And we will see you in the next round.